Hey everybody, welcome back to the Let's Talk Review Show, episode 4, and we got 5 new reviews for you guys this week, and we're going to be talking about 1997's Turbulence on 4K Blu-ray, courtesy of Kino Lorber, 1990's State of Grace, 1993's Fire in the Sky, they also have Blu-rays we'll be talking about, 1994's No Escape, and we're also going to be talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, the biggest R-rated movie of all time, at least for opening weekends, that just came out, the latest movie in the MCU. We're going to talk about that with non-spoilers, and we're going to talk about some spoilers after we get through the non-spoilers, so we'll save that for the very end of this show, and we're going to start it off with 1997's Turbulence, which honestly, right off the top, kind of feels like Con Air light. It does feel like a 1990s action movie, a lot like Passenger 57 or Air Force One. Takes place on a plane. Ray Liotta plays a serial killer, or, you know, they think he's a serial killer. At the very beginning of this movie, we see him being arrested. He claims innocence. He claims that the evidence was planted by another cop who we see in this movie. Lauren Holly plays a flight attendant. Laura Holly is most famous for 1994's Dumb and Dumber. She is great in that movie. She was also married to Jim Carrey, and, you know, I guess we were trying to make a thing for her, but even in this movie, she feels more like a plug-and-play kind of person, even though she gets a starring role and a co-credit next to Ray Liotta. Ray Liotta, though, gives a standout, over-the-top performance in this. This guy is chewing scenery and just having an absolute blast, and that's the reason why you watch this movie. It's also kind of a Christmas movie, like an alternate Christmas movie like Batman Returns, but probably more like The Ref, where it came out in the 1990s, and you kind of just forgot about it, but if you were to watch this around Christmas time, I think you'll get more value out of it. The entire plane itself that they're on is covered in Christmas lights. I've never seen them do that on a plane, but it's pretty easy to do on a set. But, you know, on a regular plane, I've never seen them decorate it like this. They're really leaning into it. Hey, it's Christmas time. You know, even at the very beginning of this movie, Ray Liotta gets arrested in New York City, and seeing late 90s New York City was really cool to see. This movie was directed by Robert Butler, and one of the last movies he directed. I mean, he didn't die until last year, but he only directed one more movie, I believe. He directed a lot of TV, though. That's really what he was most known for, more than anything. He directed, like, Hill Street Blues and stuff like that. But he did direct this movie. It does feel like Con Air light, because once him and Brendan Gleeson, who plays another character, another criminal who's on this plane, the two of them have to get transported on a regular, you know, Boeing 747. That's the plane that has the big top to it. I guess they rent that out for the prisoners and all the U.S. Marshals who are taking them across the country. Brendan Gleeson actually has a southern accent in this movie. Never seen him do that. Anytime he's in a movie, he always sounds like an English guy, or at least an Irish guy. He never sounds like a Southern American. So hearing him do that accent was pretty damn funny. I guess he was just trying things out. It's only 2 years after Braveheart. You know, really, that's where Brendan Gleeson got put on everybody's map. But in this movie, you know, he's also just one of those other criminals, but it's really Ray Liotta and Lauren Holly's movie. Why is it called Turbulence? Because early in the movie, you know, while they're being transported, Brendan Gleeson's character, this had nothing to do with Ray Liotta, he ends up trying to escape, or at least kill everyone on the plane so he can escape. I don't know what his plan was. I don't know if he knows how to fly a plane, but essentially he takes out the marshals, which eventually leads to the pilots dying, and now this plane is flying on its own, thankfully for autopilot. I guess this movie was like big when autopilot came out, and like, hey, these planes can pretty much fly and land themselves. You need a pilot to land the plane, and that's what the movie is pretty much hinting at. At some point, we're going to have to land the bird. But we're also dealing with Ray Liotta and Lauren Holly. Did Ray Liotta do it? Did he not do it? It's a big part of this movie as well, but like I said, really you're there for Ray Liotta and his performance, because for the rest of the movie, it can feel like a very generic 1990s action movie, especially around the late 90s when we were just getting a ton of these. This is not one that will stand out in the crowd. No, this is a dime a dozen kind of movie, but it is enjoyable under certain circumstances, that being around Christmas time, if you want to see Ray Liotta just having a blast. Lauren Holly, she's fine in this movie. This movie in general, it's just fine. But you know what's really pretty damn good is this Kino Lorber 4K Blu-ray. This is really what surprised me the most, especially since this is a 2-disc set like most Kino Lorber 4K Blu-rays are. You come inside, you know, you get the artwork on the outside, which I really do appreciate. That's kind of what sold me on the movie. And also Matt telling me the premise of this movie. We both grabbed this on 4K Blu-ray just because the premise of the movie sounded interesting, and we're like, you know what, we like Ray Liotta, we like 1990s movies. I personally like movies that take place on a plane, which is, you know, another box check. So I said, you know what, I'll blind buy this one, which is very rare that I do that, but it was a Kino Lorber 4K Blu-ray, and I'm kind of glad I did. You get the Blu-ray and the 4K Blu-ray. That Blu-ray will feature all of your extras, which includes an audio commentary track and about 10 trailers for other 4K Blu-rays released by Kino Lorber, and that is it. So, of course, you know, me being the extras junkie, I was pretty damn disappointed with that. There's really nothing for you other than an audio commentary track. I don't know how many people are going to be running to that. And then the trailers. In the world of YouTube, completely useless, but I have heard from people who do appreciate that. That's all going to be on your Blu-ray disc that's packed in here. You'll have the same audio tracks on the Blu-ray and the 4K. You'll have a DTS HD Master Audio 5.1, or if you're somebody who wants to check it out, the DTS HD Master Audio 2.0. Those will be your options on the Blu-ray and the 4K Blu-ray disc, and it's a pretty noticeable jump as far as the visuals go when you go from that Blu-ray to the 4K Blu-ray. The audio itself, it's pretty good. It's not the greatest DTS HD Master Audio 5.1 I've ever heard. It's solid, it's making pretty good use of your channels, but there's other times where I felt like I had to turn up the volume or lower the volume based on the dialogue, and that's a little bit disappointing, but overall, it's a solid track. Just like everything with this movie, nothing is great. The biggest standout of this entire 4K Blu-ray is when you go from that Blu-ray to the 4K Blu-ray and you get that HDR10 and Dolby Vision, and I think this is one of the best examples of why HDR is just a phenomenal feature in the 4K format, because like I was saying earlier, this is a Christmas movie, so you're seeing a lot of Christmas lights, and that stuff is going to really catch your eye on the 4K Blu-ray, whereas on the regular release Blu-ray, this kind of just feels like a regular late 1990s kind of flatly colored movie, but the 4K Blu-ray really breathes new life into it. The colors just pop off your screen, the Christmas lights, any Christmas decorations, it really helps to make this movie actually feel unique, where it just used to feel very generic, in my opinion, if you were to watch it on the Blu-ray. Now, I just came to this movie for the first time, but for me, I can imagine that Blu-ray is pretty damn solid, so going to the 4K Blu-ray, it actually makes this movie very visually stunning. There's some great scenes where there's lightning going outside, and Ray Liotta and Lauren Holly are like kind of going back and forth. Ray Liotta's trying to get in her head. This is Ray Liotta just turning it up to 10 and just having a blast. My favorite kind of Ray Liotta is when he kind of just lets loose like this and gets to overact a little. Ray Liotta's a very underappreciated actor as it is. People just think of Goodfellas and maybe they think of Field of Dreams, but this guy is all over the 1990s, working all the way up until his death. A Cocaine Bear. I think that might have actually come out after his death. I know he did that movie with Charlie Day that definitely came out like a year after his death, and he was just a great working actor that I don't think we appreciated enough, because he was trying things out, and he's great in this movie. And those scenes and how those visuals are, the 4K Blu-ray is just going to make those scenes look so much better and make this movie, I think, a little bit more enjoyable than it was if you were just to, watch this on TV, which is kind of how this movie feels. This feels like the kind of movie you would actually watch on a plane or a Saturday morning flipping through channels. But if you were to put it on, I'd say, hey, watch it around Christmas time. It's not a bad one. I'd still say, watch it like on a Saturday morning. It's not that kind of feature where you're going to sink your teeth into and have a great time. But this 4K Blu-ray, if you are a fan of 1997's Turbulence, it really isn't that bad in the visual department. The audio is fine. The extras are just junk because there are none. But either way, or if you were to grab this in a Kino Lorber sale for like 15 to 20 bucks, you could do worse than this one. But if you're somebody who has a soft spot for this movie, I think you can definitely pick this one up. If I was going to give Turbulence on 4K Blu-ray a score of 1 to 10, I would probably give this one a pretty solid 7 out of 10. The visuals are really raising that score up because there's really not too much more to this. But still, if you're a fan of Kino Lorber 4K Blu-rays, you could do worse, I guess, than Turbulence. It wouldn't be one of my favorites of all time, but those visuals definitely stand out, or something you could show people the power of high dynamic range and Dolby Vision. And the next two movies we're going to talk about are the last two movies that Kevin Kruger sent me on Blu-ray, and he saved some of the best for last. He picked Fire in the Sky and State of Grace on Blu-ray. Fire in the Sky came out in 1993. I know that's actually one of Kevin Kruger's favorite sci-fi movies of all time. He's been asking for me to watch that for a very long time. And actually, he sent me this. And this is a Scream Factory Blu-ray release. This movie's based on a true story. But the Blu-ray, before we go any further, really nice that he sent me this. A Scream Factory release and old Scream Factory Blu-rays. You get the interior artwork in here. I absolutely appreciate that. This movie was directed by Rob Lieberman. It stars D.B. Sweeney and Robert Patrick, the T-1000, who was being typecast at this point. We're only 2 years after Terminator 2. He always gets cast as the villain, so he tries to play a hero in this movie, or like a semi-hero. And like I was saying, this is actually based on a true story. The character that D.B. Sweeney plays in this movie, he claims that he was really abducted by aliens. Everything that happens in this movie, the other guys, they're coming back from work, and they see something in the sky. They see something that looks like a fire in the sky. They go to investigate it. D.B. Sweeney's character gets out of the truck. He's kind of the loose cannon of this group that also features Henry Thomas, which is really funny. And Peter Berg, the director Peter Berg, who's also in shocker. He was an actor at one point before he became a director and started working with Mark Wahlberg. And, they're all fine in this movie. It's really, though, Robert Patrick and D.B. Sweeney's movie. And even James Garner, he's great in this movie as, I think he's a U.S. Marshal and FBI agent investigating the whole thing. Because nobody believes that this happened. Like, D.B. Sweeney, he pretty much gets, they see him get thrown by this, light, and then they leave him because they're terrible friends. Robert Patrick feels guilty, and he's like, I'll go back, you guys go, but still, awful friends. So anyway, they go, and then when they get back there, D.B. Sweeney's gone, and they got to go back to the town, tell him what happened, and nobody believes him, and it almost becomes like a witch hunt for these guys. They think that they killed him because, no one's going to believe that this guy was abducted by aliens, especially in the 1970s when this actually happened. So, of course, these guys are getting railroaded. They're putting them through lie detectors tests, which none of them ever failed. Only one of them was, inconclusive, but for the most part, they all seemed like they were telling the truth, and even to this very day, the real guy still claims, I don't know if he's still alive anymore, but he always claimed that this really happened. Some of the people working on the film said that they felt like it was a hoax, but either way, they stuck to their guns. There's a book out there based on a true story, so you take it for what you will. It's really going to come down to if you believe it or not. We've actually already discovered that UFOs do exist. I don't know if they would do anything like this. I feel like if aliens really existed, they're just going to come to our planet, take everything that they want and leave. If they're that strong that they can go to other planets, I don't think they're going to be here hiding in the shadows. But, that's my 2 cents on aliens. But either way, speaking of aliens, and abductions, I don't want to go too far into this movie and what ends up happening because it's a pretty good mystery. It's a really good drama / sci-fi movie. Reminded me a lot of Jacob's Ladder, especially in the special effects, which are phenomenal in this movie. Really get under your skin, and it's the stuff of nightmare fuel. I loved the special effects in this movie, and it makes me sad because we don't get effects like this anymore in 2024, and I really wish we did because that stuff, it really actually made me feel uncomfortable, but you're also there for the drama. Robert Patrick, another underappreciated actor from the 1990s. It's really good to see him finally getting his flowers with working with James Gunn again. He's just great, Robert Patrick, and he's always been great, but unfortunately, the T-1000, it's a double-edged sword. At that point, it really made his career take off, but unfortunately, when you have a role that is that big, that's it. Now you're typecast as guys who play the T-1000. And when you hear him in interviews, and Robert Patrick seems like one of the most humble guys, he's talked about living in his car to really get his big break in acting. And that was his big break. But of course, from that point on, you'll always be the T-1000. And I'm guilty of that as well. Unfortunately, there's just guys out there like him and Michael Rooker who, kind of both are in that James Gunn kind of system of saving their careers. Unfortunately, they just get typecast all the time. And this is something that happens when you have a certain look and a certain voice. It's gonna happen. They're just gonna be like, hey, okay, this role's perfect. You know who? Michael Rooker, give him a call. Or Robert Patrick, give him a call. He'll be perfect for this role. And these guys, they're actors. It's a lot like guys who get one-hit wonders in music. They just feel like, that's it, I'm playing this song for the rest of my life. And I can understand that. Nobody wants to do the same thing forever. It'll eventually get boring, even though you have a successful career. So hearing interviews with Robert Patrick, then you watch a movie like this, you're like, damn, he's got it. Because he really is the star of this movie, gives the best performance in this movie, is the emotional through line in this movie, and it builds up to a pretty good ending that, I can see some people not loving the ending, but I think it fits the entire drama of this movie, and I really enjoyed Fire in the Sky. This is one I'll definitely be revisiting in the future. I love sci-fi movies. This was a great recommendation from Kevin. I would actually give Fire in the Sky a pretty damn solid 8.5 out of 10. And another great movie he recommended was 1990's State of Grace. And this movie has a stacked cast featuring Gary Oldman, Ed Harris, and Sean Penn. Really at the height of their powers. Robin Wright's in this movie. The future Mrs. Sean Penn. I don't think they got married till 1996. And it's funny because I was watching the movie and I'm thinking, wow, Robin Wright and Sean Penn don't really have any chemistry. And it's really funny because, they're supposed to have a relationship in this movie. And, they end up becoming a real couple. This has actually happened in other movies as well, where I'm like, these guys just have no chemistry. I'm talking about Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke. They were, they were in the movie, I think it was also 1997, Gattaca, which I love that movie. But the two of them in that movie, they have no chemistry with each other. Love the movie, love the production design, but they have no chemistry. And then they end up getting married. So what do I know? Sometimes I guess it just doesn't click on the scene. But we have that in this movie. And this movie is notoriously a box office bomb, mainly because it was released the same week, another New York movie, a little known one, but it did pretty good at the box office. You might have heard of it. Goodfellas, directed by Martin Scorsese, that came out the very same week, dealing with the similar subject matter, but I saw a lot of people saying that's the reason why this movie didn't do well, because it did have pretty good reviews from critics. Sean Penn in this movie, he plays an undercover cop. He's going back home to Hell's Kitchen. It's been a very long time. That's where his buddies are. That's where Ed Harris is, his brother Gary Oldman, not Sean Penn's brother, Ed Harris's brother Gary Oldman, the third member of their family, Robin Wright. You know, they're kind of like a low-level Irish gang living in Hell's Kitchen who work underneath the Italian mob. Ed Harris really is the guy. He wants to get ahead. He wants to get his family ahead, and he's willing to sacrifice anyone for that, including his own family. Gary Oldman, he's got a little bit more heart, but he's a loose cannon. Gary Oldman's just clearly having a blast in this movie, and he gives a phenomenal performance. Him and Sean Penn, I think, give the best performances. Ed Harris is fine in this movie, but it does feel like a lot of Ed Harris roles around that time. Glenn Ross feels very similar to this movie, especially with some of the shots of this movie. John C. Reilly's in this movie. I love seeing a young John C. Reilly, like in this and Days of Thunder, just playing such another naive, like ignorant kind of character. Not ignorant in the sense, just like he just kind of feels like a little bit like a little doofy is what John C. Reilly always feels like in these kinds of movies. He's innocent, he means well, but you know, he kind of gets in his own way. And of course, this movie does start to unravel because, like we were saying, Sean Penn is an undercover cop, kind of investigating his friends, the people he grew up with. So that really creates a conflict of interest, essentially. You know, of course, it's a moral dilemma. Like, am I going to screw over my friends for my job? You also get a young John Turturro in this movie. I always love seeing that. John Turturro really was a working actor from like the 1980s until like he really took off in like I guess it was the early 1990s, but he pops up in everything in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Got a small role in this movie, like plenty of other actors do. And the movie itself, it really is a great movie. This is one I definitely will be revisiting many times. It's really unfortunate that, unfortunately, it'll always be just kind of in the shadows of Goodfellas, and it seems like people just completely forgot about this movie, and they really shouldn't have, because A, not only is it a good movie, but it's also very well shot. That's something I really appreciated. The Blu-ray itself, you know, it's a regular old-fashioned Blu-ray. You get some interviews on there. Nothing too special as far as the extras go, but the Blu-ray itself, pretty damn solid. And for a movie like this that I really enjoyed, and Sean Penn gives such a good performance in the second Sean Penn movie we talked about in a few weeks. Sean Penn really was a great actor, and you can clearly just see that he never holds back. He gets a little bit off base sometimes with some of his performances, but still, he clearly takes the characters he's playing very seriously, and he does it again here. And him and Gary Oldman, I do believe, give the standout performances. Robin Wright and Ed Harris, as far as the leads go, they're fine, but I would say that it's definitely Gary Oldman and Sean Penn. They're the two standout performances in this movie, and the movie itself is just a very entertaining, really well done movie. I definitely really enjoyed this one, and I can definitely recommend State of Grace to you guys if you haven't seen it. Just like Fire in the Sky, I would give State of Grace a pretty damn solid 8.5 out of 10. This is definitely one of those 1990s movies. If it slipped by, I think you'll have a blast watching it. And then another movie I want to talk about is 1994's No Escape. Now, this movie was a recommendation to me. I kind of made a deal with somebody. I'm not going to say their name here on the channel, but somebody, if you guys are into the digital code giveaway, I do get donations from time to time from people, and this person always donates digital codes to me, and I'm very appreciative about it. So he said, hey, if you want to pay me back, just review the movie No Escape from 1994. I said, deal, done deal, no problem. I'll check this movie out. You seem pretty passionate about it. And I would say that this movie is a marriage between movies like Escape from New York and Waterworld. I would say it's definitely better than Waterworld, but not better than Escape from New York. Again, another movie featuring Ray Liotta came out in 1994. Ray Liotta plays, he used to be, I believe, a Marine. At this point, corporations are running the prisons. What a wild system that is. Can you imagine that? Corporations running the prisons? Never could see that coming, could you? But anyway, Ray Liotta in this movie, he plays a guy who, he didn't want to kill all these innocent people in a village. So, I don't know if it was a village, but he was told by his commanding officer to kill all these people. He didn't want to do it, so he ends up killing his commanding officer. Of course, he gets sent to all these prisons. He gets sent to the worst of the worst, but they finally gave up on him because he's escaped twice, and they're going to this prison right now where the warden says, there are no rules. I'm going to send you in here, and essentially, you're dead. And nobody knows where you are, what you're doing, and Ray Liotta, he's not that kind of guy. He's a little bit quieter in this movie. I would say that this is a more contained performance in compared to movies like we were talking about with Turbulence. It's not an over-the-top performance. It actually feels a little bit more emotional, even though there are some cheesy moments in this movie, because it does still feel like a 1990s action movie, but it has a lot more thought-provoking moments, because Ray Liotta, he tries to escape from this prison right away, and the warden's like, well, we got a system for that. We'll send you to an island with the worst of the worst. There are no rules there. There's cannibals there. There's just different groups of people, and this is where it kind of feels like Escape from New York in the sense that Ray Liotta's got to find a way now off this island, but he's got to deal with a bunch of groups of people until eventually he gets around like pretty much the real psychos, and he ends up in a group where Lance Hendrickson's in charge. This is a more civilized group of people inside this prison. They're able to grow their own food. You also get Ernie Hudson in this group. A lot of great actors appear in small roles in this movie. It's always fun to see Lance Hendrickson pop up in this movie. And Ray Liotta kind of gets an in with this group, but he still wants to get off the island. But it's really about the feuds between them. And for some reason, this is the one question I had about this movie, is why is the warden worried about what they're doing? I mean, I get you got to do supply drops and everything like that, but if you're not concerned about them, like you said you're not concerned about them, you're really getting worried about all the stuff that's going on and keeping an eye on them, and this should have been a really contained situation. So the ending, to me, it doesn't necessarily 100% work, just because you kind of had to reach for it almost to give us this happy ending. Oh, you also see the guy from When Nature Calls is in this movie, which is funny. I never see that guy in anything else, but he's in this movie. The guy who goes and picks up Jim Carrey and When Nature Calls. I never see him anything else, and I'm not going to spoil his character in this movie, but it's about what I expected, and he plays a part in the ending of this movie. I'd say the ending was a little bit disappointing because overall, like I was saying, I thought this movie was a lot more thought-provoking than Waterworld was. It's asking a lot of the same questions, but of course we're doing this in a prison that has an island in it, like in, where the worst of the worst go, dealing with how society is and how human beings think. I really thought it was a surprisingly thought-provoking movie for a movie that could have just been very well forgotten. And it seems like it has been completely forgotten. It came out in 1994, which I think is the greatest year in film, so of course this is the kind of movie that feels a little bit generic, and it really shouldn't be forgotten because it was definitely a solid watch for me. I enjoyed No Escape, and if you guys have never seen No Escape, I would actually give it a pretty solid 8 out of 10. I enjoyed my time with this one. And now the last movie, and I saved it for last because I know a lot of people still haven't seen this movie, even though it made so much money at the box office, so I can imagine most people have seen this movie. I'm talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. This one stars Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, and I am just so excited because I had a blast watching this movie in theaters where it should be seen. We're finally getting Deadpool in the MCU. People have been asking for this forever. What are we going to do with Deadpool once he gets there? Same thing with the X-Men. What are we going to do with the X-Men when they get there? What are we going to do with Hugh Jackman? Hugh Jackman's story was supposed to end with Logan, but, that MCU money, and they bring this up a lot in the movie, and just so many great jokes, is, hey, money talks, and they're going to be trucking out Wolverine and Hugh Jackman, who is still the best cast Wolverine we'll ever get. I can never imagine anyone being able to compare to him. So teaming him up with Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool in this movie, bringing this movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. How are they going to do it? Were they going to be able to stick the landing? It's been, 6 years since the last Deadpool. The first two Deadpool movies came out in 2016 and 2018. Under the 20th Century Fox banner, and a lot of people thought, well, even though those movies were financially successful, when Marvel bought them, there was no way we could fit an R-rated superhero like Deadpool. People didn't want to see him get watered down, and thankfully they did not water him down in this movie. Now, putting my critical hat on first, I just want to talk about some minor flaws in this movie that I think if you were to look at it from this way and ignore everything, all the fun in this movie, and look at it from a story perspective, the character of Vanessa or Ness was a big part of Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2. In Deadpool 2, we found a way for her not to be in the movie as much, and we did it again here in this movie. I'm not going to say exactly what happens until, another couple of minutes, but let's just say we found a clever way to kind of ignore that arc in Deadpool 1 and 2, and that didn't entirely work for me. Also, a lot of the MCU stuff, including the main villain, what's one thing that we always complain about in the MCU? We have a very generic villain in it who is very forgettable, and I would say that the villain in this movie is also very forgettable, but that also could be intentional. Maybe that's another joke because this movie is, basically a satire of not just the superhero genre, but this movie is also a satire of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, while also being a love letter to those 20th Century Fox X-Men movies and all those 20th Century Fox movies that are, hopefully they don't get completely forgotten about. We kind of made a little bit of a love letter to those, but mainly the X-Men movies, and also it's a satire. It's just done in the funniest way possible. But if I'm looking at it from a perspective of where we came from with Deadpool 2 to Deadpool and Wolverine, I can see those flaws. Does that take me me away from this movie? Absolutely not. I loved this movie. I had a blast in theaters. It's a full-blown action comedy. It's absolutely hysterical. You're just going to have a great time eating popcorn, drinking soda. Ryan Reynolds, this is the role he was born to play. I've said it a million times. And I just cannot imagine anyone else playing Deadpool. And the fact that they fucked it up so bad with Wolverine Origins and, somebody had to leak the footage for Deadpool. People just didn't have their hand on the pulse and know what people wanted because Deadpool is perfect. With all these serious superhero movies, you need somebody like Deadpool who's always cracking a joke. A lot like what I like to do. Cracking jokes in the most serious situations. It might not be the funniest thing in the world for a lot of other people, but if you appreciate that, you appreciate Ryan Reynolds' performance as Deadpool in this movie. Hugh Jackman is always great as Wolverine. And he's no different in this movie. He is phenomenal. Everything else you could hope for, all the cameos, it all just lives up to the hype. I think this movie actually stuck the landing. Is my favorite movie of 2024? Not yet, but I will have to rewatch this one. I will be getting a 4K Blu-ray of this day one when it comes out because I had a blast watching this movie. And if I was going to give Deadpool and Wolverine a score of 1 to 10, right now I'm going to give Deadpool and Wolverine a solid 9 out of 10. And now let's talk a little bit about the spoilers. So this is a spoiler warning, guys. If you want to know nothing about Deadpool and Wolverine, please come back to this part of the video after you've seen it because there's a couple things I just want to nerd out about. And this is it. 3, 2, 1. We got Wesley Snipes as Blade back in this movie. Given he's in the void, but we also get him. We get Gambit, played by Channing Tatum. So for a lot of people who might remember, Channing Tatum was actually going to direct a Gambit movie. He was going to play Gambit, and we never got to see it in a 20th Century Fox movie. Well, he's in this movie, in this void. He's there. Blade's there. Elektra's there. It was weird that we didn't get Deadpool, but we got Elektra, but I'm guessing they just couldn't lock down Ben Affleck for whatever reason. But either way, we get all of these characters. One that really got me, we get Chris Evans in this movie. He's in the void as well, and everyone thinks it's going to be Captain America. I don't know how I didn't see this coming. I felt like such an idiot. It's revealed to be Johnny Storm, Chris Evans, the other character he played, the other superhero he played in the 20th Century Fantastic Four movies. He was good in those, so he's playing that version of Chris Evans in this movie, so it was really fun to see him in this. He doesn't play Captain America. It's a great running joke with Thor. We don't actually see Thor, but there's so many great cameos like that. We also get all the characters from, the previous ones, like Peter. Oh my god, that stuff builds up. We get a ton of different Deadpools, like Lady Deadpool we see at the end, who I did look it up, was played by Blake Lively. All the needle drops, including my favorite one. I'm a big fan of this. I know a lot of people I saw complaining about this, but I love hearing like big time pop songs in movies and having like a montage or a big killing scene play over it. Some people aren't into that kind of stuff. I've always been a big fan of that. So if you get Madonna's Like a Prayer and you see a bunch of Deadpools getting killed by Deadpool and Wolverine, yeah, I'm there for that 110% out of the time. That's something I love seeing in movies, and I had a blast with this one doing it. Movie comes in under 2 hours long. Some of the MCU stuff, that stuff doesn't necessarily 100% work. This does kind of feel like a little bit of a stopgap. It kind of inches us forward in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it doesn't get us fully there. This doesn't feel like something that's going to play too much of an effect on what the entire thing is going forward. This kind of just really does feel like a Deadpool and Wolverine movie. And by the way, I just have to talk about the opening credits with Bye 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 and NSYNC playing and having him kill all of these characters, those time variants, with Logan's dead body from the first Logan that came out. And, he's all metal and he's got the hair and everything like that. That stuff is just absolutely hysterical. The jokes themselves, like I was saying, they're coming at you like a mile a minute, and it is absolutely hysterical for the most part. I don't think there was a joke from Ryan Reynolds that didn't land on me. So actually, that's not true. There's something with he kept saying baby knife. I thought that we kind of burned that joke into the ground, but that's Deadpool in a nutshell anyway, right? He's gonna keep going. He's Merc with the mouth. He's perfect in this movie. Wolverine was perfect in this movie. I don't think they did anything to hurt the character of Logan's legacy. Hugh Jackman was clearly game to come back and do whatever they wanted. This movie also had the heart in it. And you guys already saw my score for this movie, but I want to hear from you guys who did see Deadpool and Wolverine. What did you guys think about it? Leave those comments in the comment section below. I just want to talk about it because I know there were some people who didn't love this movie. Me personally, I had an absolute blast with it, but movies are subjective. They're in the eyes of the beholder. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, as the saying goes. So I want to hear from you guys in the comment section. What did you guys think of Deadpool and Wolverine. And thank you guys all so much for being here with me on another episode of the Let's Talk Review Show. I really hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button, that subscribe button, share this video if you could. Even get out in those streets and tell your friends about us. And guys, we also have some channel memberships. We have a Friends of the Channel tier, a Producers tier, where you're going to find John Doe Juggalo and Jason Martin. We also have a Directors tier, where you're going to find Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews and Mr. Smelly Potato. But if you got no money to throw away, guys, don't you worry about it at all. We just hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, make sure you guys come on back. And then we'll be seeing you around.